Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to day 2 of Growth Now Summit, a virtual experience. I'm Lauren Blackford, and I want to welcome you and thank you for joining me this morning for yoga. If you're new to yoga, then welcome. If you've practiced before, then welcome back. I'm happy to have you here. So just some housekeeping items before we get started. You can see me, but I cannot see you. So I cannot help cue individual alignment or postures. So please just make sure you listen to your body and make any modifications necessary. If you need to take a break at any time, feel free to drop into child's pose. We will be getting into that pretty early on in this practice, so you'll be familiar with it. And if you don't have a yoga mat, that's okay. If you have a towel or a blanket, something smooth and slightly cushioned to practice on, especially if you're on hardwood like me, or if you're on a rough carpeted surface, it might be nice to have something. And if you want to set it up parallel to me, we'll be facing each other for part of the practice, so it'll be easier for you to see if you're facing me. Now, today's Growth Now Summit virtual sessions are going to be full of inspiration, motivation, lessons, and aha moments for all of us. So this practice this morning will not only open you up, wake you up, loosen you up, but open you up to receiving all the messages that are meant for you today. So I'm going to cue up the music real quick. The mantra we're going to be using during our practice today is I am open to receiving. So if you'll join me in mountain pose, just standing tall like a mountain, feet comfortably hip width apart, arms at your sides. We're just going to take a moment to breathe, gazing inward, maybe closing our eyes, just centering ourselves, leaving everything behind, being very present here in this moment, in this practice, saying our mantra, I am open to receiving. Breathing. Just starting by warming up the neck a little bit. So just dropping the head over to the right shoulder, rolling the chin toward the chest, and rolling the head back up to the left shoulder. Rolling chin to chest and back up to the right. Just rolling side to side, making up the neck a little bit. Keeping the spine extended and not rolling the head back. And then bringing the head back to neutral, just opening up the spine a little bit, reaching our left arm across, resting on the right hip and twisting as we look over that right shoulder. Breathing into that spinal twist, keeping our knees nice and soft. And releasing back to center, moving that right arm across, resting on the left hip, twisting and breathing. And releasing back to center. And on our next inhale, let's raise our arms all the way up toward the sky. And on the exhale, hinging at the hips, soft knees, folding all the way down, swan diving the arms. And just coming to rest in this forward fold. We're not reaching for our feet or the floor. We're letting the weight of our head and upper body release the spine. On our inhale, feeling our lungs gently nudge our spine. And on our exhale, feeling us releasing down a little bit. Keeping your knees as soft as you need them to, even bending them if that's comfortable. And on your next inhale, rising up to mountain pose again, arms overhead. And on your exhale, release the arms down and bring the hands to heart center in a prayer pose. And just take a deep breath. I'm going to do that forward fold again. So inhaling, arms reach all the way up. And Exhale, hinging at the hips, folding all the way down, knees very soft. Again, we're releasing, we're not reaching. Just letting gravity do the work here. And on your next inhale, rising back up, arms overhead. And exhale, bringing arms all the way down to heart center. One more forward fold, so inhale, arms reach. Exhale, folding all the way down. From here, we're gonna shift our attention to the front of our mat and come down to hands and knees. Spreading our knees very wide with big toes touching, forming a bit of a triangle. Sinking our hips back toward our heels and extending our arms in front of us. Finding our forehead touching the mat. This is our child's pose. This is where you may come to rest at any time. But for now, I want you to press your forehead gently into the mat a little bit. The center of our forehead is our third eye, our center of intuition. And in gently nudging it, we are opening it to receiving. And then lifting our forehead off the mat, coming to our fingertips, but keeping our hips low. We're going to walk our fingertips out to the right. Keeping that left hip down very low, forming a bit of a crescent shape with our body stretching our left side. And then walking our fingertips back towards center. And keep moving toward the left side of our mat, keeping our right hip sunk low, forming that crescent shape and stretch. Moving fingertips back towards center. We're going to come up to hands and knees, or tabletop position, moving our hips or knees directly under our hips, our shoulders above our wrists. From here, we're going to open up the spine a little bit more in a cat-cow flow. First starting in cow, so we're dropping the belly, arching the back, lifting hips and chest. Keeping the gaze long, keeping the spine long. We're not craning our neck back. We're keeping that gaze at about 45 degrees. And then for our cat, we're rounding the spine and pressing through as cats do when they stretch. And then dropping the belly, lifting hips and chest into our cow. And rounding and pressing back into our cat. Feel that stretch. And one more, dropping the belly, arching the back into cow. And rounding, pressing back into cat. And as we come back to our neutral tabletop, keeping everything else where it is, we're going to round and tuck our toes underneath. And flow back and forth to stretch our feet and our wrists. So sinking hips back toward heels while our toes are tucked, feeling a stretch in the bottom of the feet. And then coming forward, extending the shoulders beyond the hands and feeling the wrists strengthen. And sinking hips back toward the heels, stretching those feet again. You may notice one foot more than the other. I know I do. And then extending those shoulders beyond the hands, feeling the wrists ignite. And then just one more, sinking the hips toward the heels. And extending the shoulders beyond the hands. Beautiful. Coming back to our neutral tabletop, keeping toes tucked. We're going to move into our first downward dog of the class. So pressing through your feet and lifting your hips toward the sky. Pressing back toward the heels. If you need to keep the knees soft, that's okay. This is our downward facing dog. If you need to adjust, because our arms and legs and torsos are all different shapes and sizes. Find a comfortable downward dog position and maybe pedal out the feet a little bit, feeling your hamstrings, maybe moving the hips from side to side, maybe releasing the neck, maybe pressing the shoulders away from the ears, and then walking the feet gently toward the hands, coming into a nice gentle forward fold. And breathe. And on your next inhale, rising up, arms overhead. And exhale, bring the hands up, down and around, coming to rest at heart center. Now that we're a bit warmed up, we're going to do a few sun salutations. In our yoga practice, sun salutations are a way of honoring the sun's energy and vitality it provides throughout the day. So we're going to honor the sun for the vitality it's going to bring us throughout this whole virtual summit today. Here we go. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold all the way down. On our inhale, we're going to come to a halfway lift, so forming an L shape with our body. And then release our hands down to the mat with very soft knees. Gently stepping one foot and then the other back into a plank pose. And bending at the elbows, lowering all the way down. Keeping the hands where they are, releasing the toes. And let's nudge that third eye, press on the forehead into the mat. I am open to receiving. And on your next inhale, gently peel the chest off the mat into cobra pose, leaving the navel down, legs long, spine long, gaze long. And releasing down to the mat again. Tucking toes, we're going to press up into our plank. And then shift our hips backward into downward facing dog. And again here, adjust, walk it out, move those hips, whatever feels good. And gently walking those feet toward the hands, coming to that halfway lift. So forming that L shape and releasing to a forward fold. And on your next inhale, rising up. And exhale, release the arms down, coming back to heart center. That was sun salutation A. We're going to continue that 2 more times with a slight variation. So let's go. Inhaling, arms reach. Exhaling, fold all the way down. Keep those knees soft. Inhale, halfway lift, that L shape. And as we exhale, we're releasing the hands down to the mat and then stepping one foot and the other back to plank. From here, you can either lower all the way down as we did before, or just bending at the elbows, coming halfway down into a push-up or chaturanga. From here, pressing through hands to lift up. This is our upward facing dog. So the hips are off the mat. The spine is long. You could do this or cobra, up to you. And then from here, we're going to tuck those toes underneath, shift those hips back into our downward facing dog. Breathing. And then walking those feet to the hands again, coming to that halfway lift, and releasing to a forward fold. Breathe. On your next inhale, rise all the way up to standing, arms high. And exhale, release, arms all the way down, bringing them to heart center. We're going to do that 1 more time. So take a breath. And then inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bringing hands to the mat, stepping 1 foot, and then the other back to our plank. Choose to lower all the way down or choose our chaturanga or push-up halfway. pressing into upward facing dog or cobra. And then shifting those hips back toward the sky into our downward facing dog. Taking a breath here. And walking our feet back toward our hands. Coming to that halfway lift. Releasing to fold. And then reaching and rising all the way up. And bring our arms down and around, coming to rest at heart center. We're going to move on to Sun Salutation B. It's a little bit longer with some new postures involved. So we're only going to do one iteration of that. Now, from our mountain pose, we're going to release our hands down. We're going to move into chair pose. So bending at the knee, shifting the hip back as if you're sitting in a chair, keeping that tail nice and tucked. Moving the arms up into a 45-degree angle for balance. This is our chair pose. You can feel it in your thighs and in your behind. And on an exhale, release to a forward fold. Coming to that halfway lift. And releasing hands down to the mat. Stepping one foot and then the other back to plank. Lowering to our chaturanga. And pressing into upward dog or cobra. As we roll over our toes, we'll shift our hips to the sky to our downward dog. And from here, we're going to lift our right foot off the mat and just try to step it between hands. If you need to urge it along a little bit, that's okay. Keeping the knee over the ankle. No runner's lunge here. Right on fingertips. Again, spine very long, gaze long. We're not craning the neck back. And we'll lift our hands off the mat, hinge our torso upright into a high lunge. Breathing here. I am open to receiving. And on an exhale, release the hands down to the mat and inch that right foot back toward our plank pose. We're going to lower to our chaturanga, pressing into upward dog, and shifting the hips back into our downward facing dog. Doing the lunge on the left side, so lifting that left foot off the mat and inching it up between hands. No shame in helping it along. Making sure that knee is over the ankle. Hinging the arms and torso upright into our high lunge. I am open to receiving. And then releasing hands back down to the mat. Inching that left foot back into our plank pose. And bending at the elbows, lowering down to our chaturanga. Pressing into upward facing dog. And shifting those hips backward into downward facing dog. Take a breath. And walking our feet toward our hands, coming to that halfway lift. And releasing to a fold. We're not done yet. Remember that chair pose? So from here, bending at the knees, sinking the hips backward, and hinging that torso up. Arms at a 45-degree angle, tail tucked, feeling that in the thighs and in behind. And releasing to mountain pose, bringing hands to heart. Beautiful. That's why we're only doing one. So, taking a breath. Let's continue. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, folding all the way down. Coming to that halfway lift because it feels so good. Releasing hands to the mat. We're stepping back into our plank pose again. And we're going to face each other in a side plank. So coming to the outside of your right foot, inside of your left, and raising that left arm toward the sky. Now if this is too much, you can drop down on your knee, Or if you want to add a little bit to it, you can stack those feet. From wherever you are, coming back to our neutral plank. So now we're going to face away from each other to the other side. So roll to the outside of your left, inside of your right. Lifting that right arm to the sky. Again, dropping that knee, stacking the feet, whatever you fancy today. And coming back to our plank pose, dropping those knees wide and sinking back into child's pose. I am open to receiving, nudging that third eye a bit. And back up. We're going to press back into downward facing dog. Just take a moment here, pedal it out, move the neck, move the hips. Feel the difference from our first downward dog to now. And we're going to move to face each other again. So you're going to lift your right foot off the mat, back and up behind you into a down dog split. And then bend that knee and step those hands. Step that foot between hands. Coming into our runner's lunge again. Hinging the torso upright into our high lunge. And here's where we get to see each other. Well, you get to see me. We're going to take that left foot and spin it around so that the toes are facing me. Your hips and shoulders facing me, but your right knee and toes are still pointed that way. Take a glance and make sure that your heel and arch are in alignment here. And arms out to sides. Gaze is over the right fingertips. This is our warrior two pose. It's a pose of strength, but also vulnerability. It's a beautiful combination. I am open to receiving. Now let's straighten that right knee without locking out into it. And hinging at the hips, extending our torso, the waist, out over our right leg. And when we've hit our edge here, rotating the shoulders, stack them. Your right hand finding your shin or your ankle or the mat in front of you, behind you. Your left arm finding the sky. Maybe your gaze finds itself up there too. This is our triangle pose. We feel the stretch right here, right here. Breathing here for a moment. When you're ready to release, move those right toes to face me, parallel to your left foot, and release down into a wide leg forward fold. Again, letting gravity do the work here. Soft knees. Release. And we're going to morph our shape into a triangle on the left. So moving those left toes to face the back of your mat. Maybe shifting the right heel out a little bit. Coming to find your shin, ankle, or the mat in front or behind you. And extending your right arm toward the sky. Finding triangle on this side. Feeling the stretch. Bending into that left knee. Rotating the torso upright, finding warrior two on the left. So making sure that that heel is aligned with that arch, that your hips are square to me, and that your knee is pressing out. Gazing out over those left fingertips. Breathing. Open to receiving. And can we toe heel our left foot back a little bit to make room as we rotate the right foot onto the ball and facing the back of our mat and sinking into that high lunge. I am open to receiving. Releasing hands down to the mat. Inching that foot back into plank pose. Lowering into our chaturanga. Pressing up to our upward dog or cobra. And then shifting those hips back into downward facing dog. Take a breath. This time we're going to lift our left foot back and up behind us into down dog split. Bending that knee. Stepping that foot between hands, inching it up if it needs a little help. No shame. And lifting up into our high lunge. Once more. Rotating that right foot. Opening up to warrior two. Gazing out over those left fingertips. Hips aligned. We're not sinking into that hip. Keeping everything very aligned. As we straighten that left knee, once more for our shape, Heels in, toes at about a 45-degree angle. Arms up at about a 45-degree angle into a starfish position. Can't be more open than this. Or can you? We're going to bend our knees and bend our elbows into a goddess squat. Feeling those hips open up and release. And one more time, bending those knees, bending the elbows into a squat and release. Last time, bending the elbows, bending the knees. Now staying in our squat if you can. Drop those hands down to the tops of the thighs. We're going to open up our throat chakra here with a little twist. We're going to drop that right shoulder down into center. Gazing out over the left shoulder. This opens up the throat chakra. Our center of expression and authenticity. Coming back to neutral. You need to take a break out of the squat, that's fine. Meeting us back here. And then dropping that left shoulder down, gazing out over the right. This helps us find our messaging, finding our truth. And then releasing. Shift those toes to face me. Let's come into another forward fold with wide legs. Again, we're releasing, not reaching. Breathing. And shifting those right toes to face the top of the mat, bending into the that knee, and windmilling up to our warrior two, hips very aligned. Gazing out over those right fingertips. And again, if we can toe heel that foot back a little bit as we rotate our left foot to face front into our high lunge. Breathing. And releasing your hands down to the mat, inching that foot back into our plank pose. Lowering down to our chaturanga. Pressing up into our upper facing dog. And shifting those hips back to the sky into our downward facing dog. Take a moment here and breathe. And let's walk our feet to our hands once more, coming to that forward fold. Inhaling, rising all the way up. And exhaling, bringing the hands to heart. We're going to do a little bit of a balance in this part of the practice. So we're going to ground down into our left foot, feeling very strong and balanced, extending through the top of our head toward the sky, standing very tall. And kickstand that right foot up a little bit, just testing, making sure we find our balance. And if this is your edge in balance, that's fine. If you want a little bit more, let's raise that knee toward the chest. You can grab behind the thigh or in front of the shin, just avoiding the knee. And from here, it feels like a fun idea, pressing that foot toward the back of the mat, hinging down to be parallel to the floor, arms out to the sides for balance. This is our warrior three. So a long line of energy from heel to head. Again, we're keeping our neck nice and long, so we're gazing just out in front of our mat. And then bringing that knee back into the chest, grabbing it behind or at the shin, releasing back down to the mat. Other side. So grounding into that right leg, foot very firm, crown of the head very tall. And kickstand that left foot off the mat, testing our balance. And when we have it, lifting the knee toward the chest, grabbing underneath, in front. And again, if it feels like a fun idea, pressing that foot toward the back of the mat, hinging forward to be parallel to the floor. Long line of energy from heel to head. Warrior three, I am open to receiving. And releasing the knee back to the chest. And down to the mat. Beautiful. Bringing hands to heart center and taking a deep breath. Honoring your body for the beautiful balance we just achieved. And inhaling, arms reach. Let's move on. Exhale, folding all the way down. Coming to that halfway lift because it feels so good. Releasing your hands down to the mat and stepping one foot and the other back to plank. Oh no, another chaturanga? That's okay. Let's drop those knees wide and come into child's pose. And take a moment, nudging that third eye, opening yourself up to receiving. And coming to sit up, bringing our knees together a little bit. This is our hero's pose. Keeping the spine nice and long, crown very lifted. Breathing. We come up onto our knees. If this is too much for your knees, please, feel free to put a blanket underneath you. We're going to open up all the chakras now in our camel pose. So our knees are about hip width apart. Our thighs are very strong. Firming up those thighs is going to protect your low back, so make sure that you do so. If you can place your hands on your low back, we're just going to arch a little bit back. This is our camel pose. You can feel maybe the long line of energy coming up the front of your body through all of your chakras. Open yourself up to receiving. Don't drop your head back too far. Again, we're keeping our spine nice and long. And let's release back into child's pose with our knees together. I'm open to receiving. Rolling back up to our hero's pose. We're going to sink to one hip and rotate those legs out in front of us. Shifting our body just so, maybe moving our meat away from our feet so that those sit bones are nice and grounded. Keeping our torso, our upper body very long. It's called staff pose. I'm just going to do some gentle seated forward folds. Keeping our spine long. We are not rounding to reach our toes. We are hinging to stretch our whole back body. So just sort of inch your hands as far as your edge while keeping your spine nice and long. And when you find your edge, just kind of stay there. Again, keeping the spine long. I don't want you to do this. You want this. And as you breathe, on each exhale, see if you can sink a little lower, inch a little further. Honor your edge, honor your body. Yoga is not about the ego. It's about honoring where you are and how far you've come. And as we release back up to staff pose, just take a moment and breathe. Be proud of the work that you are doing this morning. Now, with our hands next to our hips, we're just going to lift up a little bit, put our feet flat, and shift our hips closer to our feet. Move into boat, excuse me. So from here, if you want to just grab the backs of your thighs and straighten your spine a little bit, just lift it up a little bit. And come to your tiptoes. And if this is your edge, then honor that and stay there. If you're able to lift your feet up off the mat to get your shins parallel to the floor, while still keeping your spine elongated and lifted, maybe letting go of the thighs. We won't go into full boat pose, that's straightening the knees. It's a little much for this morning. But if you do want an extra bit of ab work, see how I'm shaping. Even yoga teachers. You can lower down almost all the way with me. And come back up. A little bit of ab work this morning. Lowering down, coming back up, keeping the spine nice and long. One more. And releasing. Good morning. All right, grabbing one knee into chest, we're going to roll that down onto our backs. And keeping our feet flat on the floor, we're going to inch them closer to our hips. If you can touch your heels with your fingertips, that's good. If not, it's okay too. Breathing here, all we're going to do is lift our hips toward the sky into bridge pose. So let's just pressing feet into the mat, lift the hips toward the sky, forming a bridge with our body. Chins kind of moving into the chest. Knees, keep them in. Don't let them flail out. Pretend you're holding a brick between them and you can't drop it. And release back down to the mat. And just breathe for a second. And let's do that one more time. Lifting the hips into bridge. Breathing. And releasing hips back down to the mat. And keeping your feet where they are. Lifting the right foot toward the sky. Straightening that leg and flexing that foot. We're going to bend that right knee and place that right ankle just above the left knee. And taking our right hand, just gently pressing that thigh away from the body, feeling that stretch in the hip. So reclined pigeon pose, our hip opener. And then we'll lift our left foot off the mat, thread that right arm through the legs to meet the left hand behind that thigh, and just gently pull that left thigh toward the body, feeling the stretch in the outside of that right hip. Sometimes I like to take that right elbow and nudge the thigh out a little bit, but honor your body where it is right now. And then releasing both feet back to the mat. Moving into reclined pigeon on the left. So lifting that left foot toward the sky. Foot very flexed. And then bending that knee and placing the left ankle on that right thigh. With our left hand, nudging that thigh away from the body. And then threading the hands to reach the back of that right thigh, lifting the right foot off the floor and gently pulling toward the body. Maybe nudging that left thigh out, maybe not. And releasing both feet back to the mat. Let's hug those knees in a little bit. And breathe. Releasing our arms out to the side. Do some final twists. So we're going to drop those knees over to the right ever so gently. Nothing too quick. We can keep our left shoulder closer to the mat and gaze out over to the left side to complete the twist. And breathe into it. And then bring our head and knees back towards center. Letting the knees fall over to the left, gently gazing to the right. Breathe. And bring the knees and head back towards center. Hugging them in, and rocking from side to side to release the low back. Keeping the knees into chest. You're going to extend the feet toward the ceiling. You can either grab the backs of the thighs or the outsides of the feet. Gently pulling those knees toward the mat on either side of your torso. This is our happy baby. This is a pose of innocence and vulnerability and openness. So I am open to receiving the goodness in store for me today and every day. Breathing. And releasing the feet or the thighs. Hugging those knees into chest one more time. Again, rocking to release that low back. Maybe bringing nose to knees. Hugging in one more time. And releasing. And release one leg at a time. Extending them on the mat in front of you. Wriggling the hips to release those legs and let them fall open where they may. We're going to shimmy the shoulders a little bit to release those arms and let them fall where they may. Moving the head side to side, releasing the neck and just then letting it go and let the head fall where it may. This is our final resting pose of Shavasana. In Shavasana, there is no more work to be done. This is where we integrate and receive from the work that we've done in our practice. I will bring you out of Shavasana when it's time, so you don't need to think about anything or do anything. This is your moment to just let it go, relax, receive, and just be. when you're ready, bring yourself back into your body and into the room, wiggling your fingers and toes, maybe moving your head from side to side. Gently rolling onto one side into a bit of a fetal position to wake yourself up. And then when you're ready, joining me in a comfortable seated position on your mat. I want to thank you for practicing with me today, and I hope that you feel refreshed and ready to receive all that is meant for you throughout the rest of the virtual summit. If you would like more info about what I do, you can go to my website, yozenity.com. You can find me on Instagram at Lauren_Blackford, or you can email me at lauren@yozenity.com. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.